press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update.
Hello students, today let me discuss the questions related to the fourth split and fifth split. So the questions will be related to the topics excretory system and locomotion and movement and neural control and coordination. Okay, once again the topics that are there for fourth split and fifth split are excretory products and their elimination. Then we have locomotion and movement and neural control and coordination. Okay, the first question that is given to you all is they have given, so which of the following options show the correct measurement of an adult human kidney? So here we should know what is the length of the human kidney, what is the measurement of the human kidney. So they are given different figures to know the length of kidney here. So in the length they have given first in the first option 10 to 12 centimeters, width is 5 to 7 centimeters, thickness is 2 to 3 centimeters and weight is 1 to 170 grams. So if you come to the board, so if I take the diagrammatic view of, if you take the diagrammatic view of kidney here, so if I take the excretory system, so excretory system we say that pair of kidneys are present. Pair of kidneys here we should know the length of the kidney. So the complete system of kidney here just for your understanding. So here pair of kidneys. So they asked you the question, what is the length? What is the length of the measurement and length of the kidney? So here length of the kidney will be here. Length of the kidney will be 10 to 12 centimeters. Then width is 5 to 7 centimeters. Next, thickness of the kidney, thickness will be around 2 to 3 centimeters, 2 to 3 centimeters. And the weight of a kidney, weight of the kidney. So when you take only the single kidney, the weight will be 120 to 170 grams. Okay. So this is the exact number where you should know the length of a kidney here. So the length of the kidney is 10 to 12 centimeters, width is 5 to 7 centimeters, thickness is 2 to 3 centimeters, weight is 120 to 170 grams. Okay, the option given to you all. So the first option will be correct. The first option is correct for the question. So which is the, once again I'll tell. So here the length of the kidney, which of the following options show the correct measurement of an adult human kidney? So the answer is 10 to 12 centimeters, 5 to 7 centimeters, thickness is 2 to 3 centimeters and weight is 120 to 170 grams. Okay. Next question. So they are given the diagram of. So given figure is the longitudinal section of kidney. So you should know the diagrams properly to attend the questions. Given figure is a longitudinal section of kidney. Identify the parts labeled as A to D. So there are diagrammatic view of kidney. You should know here. Here, if I take the diagram of kidney, a single kidney, it is a kidney shaped. Then here we have the structure. The outer covering of the kidney, it is, the outer covering is like this. inside the kidney we have, so here we have the presence of so here inside we have like this the structures inside the kidney. So again we have these are called renal pyramids. The pyramids with the papillae are present. These are elongated like this. They form the connection. Okay, right. From here we have the emerging of renal artery and renal vein. Just for your understanding, I'm writing the diagram. It's not here we have here the first part. So it is the renal artery here. Then we have renal vein, and we have the another part here. It is called ureter. It will go to the urinary bladder. So this part is called it is called ureter, and this is called the outer part is called it is a cerebral cortex, renal cortex. It is renal cortex. Then we have here inside. So this part inside the kidney, this part is called calyx, and this part is called a column. A renal column. So you should know the diagrammatic view of kidney to answer this question. So the question they have given the diagram here. So in the diagram they are asking which parts A, B. So D is ureter. Here D is ureter. Next B is, so the B here given is B is cortex. So here we have cortex. Next A is, so inside they have given A as calyx. Then calyx, cortex, and C is renal column. So A, B, and C and D. So the option will be the second one: calyx, cortex, then renal column and ureter. Renal cortex, renal column, calyx, and ureter are the parts of the kidney given to you. So in the question you should know the diagrammatic view of the kidney given. So answer will be second option. Second option is calyx, cortex, renal column, ureter. Next question. Next question is which of the following is correct pathway for passage of urine in the humans? So how the urine is passed? From you should know the sequence of the urine passage. So for urine passage, you should know that. So now the excretory waste that is in the form of urine is collected first. So if I take the diagrammatic view of nephron, in a nephron it is collected in the collecting tube. It is collected in the collecting tube. Then it goes to the next part there we have ureter. Then it goes to the next part is urinary bladder. Then it moves on. Then it moves to it passes through the urethra. The external genital organ in the male is urethra. So now we say that, so here the urine is collected in the collecting tube of the nephrons. So in nephrons we have the different parts like Bowman's capsule, then it goes to the PCT, then it goes to the Henle's lobe, then it goes to the DCT, then it goes to the collecting duct. In the collecting duct, the urine is collected. From there, it moves to the pair of ureters. From the ureters, it moves to the urinary bladder. From the urinary bladder, the urine is going to pass out from here. So, urine is collected here and urine will be passed out. Okay. So, the sequence whichever they are given in your question is, so the first sequence is correct. So, first the urine is collected in the collecting tubule, then it goes to the ureter, bladder, and then to the urethra. So the answer will be first one. So they are given renal vein, renal ureter, bladder, urethra, and all. So all the sequences are wrong. So the first sequence is correct. So if you know the mechanism of urine formation, how it will form and where it is collected, you can answer the question this one. Next one. Next question is, which of the following is correct sequence of the process involved in urine formation? Again, so if I go to the formation of urine, the steps involved in formation of urine. The steps involved in formation of urine are, so in the physiology of urine formation, there are three steps. The first step is called filtration. First step is called filtration. The second step is called reabsorption. Filtration, reabsorption. Then the third step is called secretion. Okay, the first step is filtration, reabsorption, and secretion. Here, filtration is also called by the another name called glomerulus filtration. Glomerulus filtration. Okay, glomerulus filtration. So the urine that is to be formed. So the blood is going to be filtered. So it enters the blood that is going to enter the kidneys to the it is coming from the afferent arteriole and it falls to the Bowman's capsule. Bowman's capsule is having a knot like blood vessels called glomerulus. So the glomerulus will filter the blood first. So the blood knots with the different porosity. Podocytes are also helping in the filtration of blood which are present in the Bowman's capsule. So complete filtration will take, and here whatever the filtration is formed is called GFR, glomerulus filtration rate, based on the size of the different colloidal molecules of the health. So glomerulus filtration will lead to the glomerulus filtration rate. So the molecules which are large in size will go back and the molecules which are less than the size of the podocyte will come down. So first there is a filtration of blood. We say that protein molecules will move back to the blood or it moves to the peritubular capillaries, but rather all the molecules will come down like glucose, amino acids, all will come to the next part. Next, reabsorption. Reabsorption of many of the electrolytes with the some of the molecules are reabsorbed in the PCT. Then in the Henle slope, complete Henle slope is used for reabsorption there. Next, secretion. Secretion is done in the collecting tube. Collecting tubular secretion is done, which is in the form of urine. Concentrated urine is formed in the secretion part. So here we say that the sequence of urine formation is, first is filtration, second is reabsorption, third is secretion. So the answer will be second option. Which of the following is the correct sequence of process involved in urine formation is filtration, reabsorption, and secretion. Next one. Next question is, select the incorrect statement regarding the mechanism of urine formation in man. Again, the same question related to the last option itself. Last question ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಕೇಳಿದ್ದು ಅದನ್ನ ಮತ್ತೆ ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೇನೆ, ಬಟ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಯೂರಿನ್ ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಕೇಳಿದೆ. ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇತ್ತು, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಯೂರಿನ್ ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ್ದೆಲ್ಲ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದೆ. See that. So the options given there are, select the incorrect statement regarding the mechanism of urine formation. So the first option is the glomerular filtration rate is 125 ml per minute. So as soon the filtrate will pass, so how much filtrate is going to be filtered by the kidneys and the per minute? It is 125 ml, 125 ml per minute by each kidney. Okay, right? So that is correct. The glomerular filtration rate is about 125 ml per minute is correct. Second statement is the ultrafiltration is opposed by the colloidal osmotic pressure of the plasma. So the statement here, the ultrafiltration the ultrafiltration is opposed by the colloidal osmotic pressure of the plasma. So colloidal osmotic pressure is nothing but the pressure exhibited by the proteins. The colloidal molecules that are going to pass through the Bowman's capsule is also called COP ಅಂತ ಕರೀತೀವಿ. Colloidal osmotic pressure of the plasma will lead to the ultrafiltration also. The molecules which are heavier in size, they go back to the peritubular capillaries and the molecules will come down. Aldosterone induces great reabsorption of sodium. That is also correct. So aldosterone is a hormone that is going to be used in the filtration of blood by the kidneys where great reabsorption of sodium is done. So sodium loss ಆಗ್ದಾರಂಗೆ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾ. Some of the electrolytes are also important in the body. So they are reabsorbed back by the aldosterone. Next, the last one, the fourth option is the counter current system contributes in diluting the urine ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. This option is wrong. The counter current system contributes in concentrating the urine. So it helps in concentrating the urine. Concentrate the urine. Urine is done by counter current system. Counter current system in the Aktara. Okay. Concentrate the urine is done by the counter current system in the kidney then. So fourth option is wrong. Next question. Next question is the function of renin. So we know that an enzyme related called renin is present in the kidneys. During urine formation, renin is taking a function there. So here the function of renin is to convert. So what the renin will do? So renin is not going to help in stimulation of corpus luteum of the ovary. So the first option is stimulation of corpus luteum. So that function is not done by the renin. So renin is also helpful in, it helps in conversion of angiotensinogen into angiotensin. So that is the correct answer here. To reduce the blood pressure also it is not useful. Vasodilation is also not done by the renin. Vasodilation means diluting the blood vessels. So if there is any problem in the blood vessels, they are going to be diluted. So to reduce the blood pressure, so blood pressure is not done by this. So here the answer will be conversion of angiotensinogen to angiotensin is the correct answer. So there we say that here the fourth option, conversion of angiotensinogen to angiotensin 1 ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. So here angiotensin is going to be converted into tensinogen is going to be converted into angiotensin 1. So this enzyme renin helpful in the conversion. If there is a conversion of angiotensinogen to angiotensin 1, the glomerulus rate will be controlled. So if the glomerulus rate is fall, if there is a fall in the glomerulus rate, so per minute there should be 125 ml of glomerulus filtration. If there is a fall in the glomerulus filtration rate, suddenly the angiotensinogen will convert into angiotensin 1 with the help of an enzyme called renin. For the fall of, if there is a fall in GFR level, this enzyme will activate and they will convert the procedure. Right, next question. So next question is, what will happen if the stretch receptors of the urinary bladder The stretch receptors of the urinary bladder are removed ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ. The stretch receptor of the urinary bladder are removed. So the stretch receptors are present in the urinary bladder. So these stretch receptors will go on expanding when urine is collected. So the question is, what will happen if the stretch receptors of the urinary bladder wall are totally removed? So from the urinary bladder, if the stretch receptors are removed, what will happen? So they are asking the answer for this. So the answer will be, there will be no voluntary control over micturition of the health. Next, urine will continue to collect normally in the bladder. There will be no micturition. Urine will collect in the urethra. So the first option is, there will be no voluntary control over micturition. So what is micturition? You know that micturition, the process of urine formation. Micturition. So micturition is nothing but the process of process of formation of urine, process of formation of urine. Where? In the urinary bladder. Formation of process of formation of urine in the urinary bladder is called micturition. So this urinary bladder is having the continuous collection of urine here. So which will help with the removal of urine and the stretch receptors. The receptors that are present in the urinary bladder are going to help in expansion of the urinary bladder as the volume of the urine becomes more and more. When the urine collection is going on, the receptors that are present in the urinary bladder will help in stretching the urinary bladder. But this is controlled by the ANS. Autonomic nervous system will control the receptors. So the receptors are controlled by the ANS of the health. When the ANS is going to control the receptors, it is a involuntary action that is occurring there. Autonomic nervous system is going to control. If these receptors are totally removed, what will happen? There is continuous formation of urine in the urinary bladder. So every minute there is a secretion of urine there. So the urinary bladders, there are no receptor to stretch. So if it is removed, the urinary bladder is filled with the urine. So what happens? There is no control at all. The urine may go on uncontrollably, it may go on. There will be no voluntary control over the micturition. Micturition, urine ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗಿ ಪಾಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಈಗ ರಿಸೆಪ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಕಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ತೆಗೆದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಯೂರಿನ್ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗಿ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸೇ ದಟ್ ದೇರ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ನೋ ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ ಓವರ್ ದ micturition. Okay, so if the stretch receptors are removed from the body. Next question is, the following substances are the excretory products in animal. Choose the least toxic from among them. So we know that the excretory products in the animals are in the form of ammonia. Excretory products are in the form of ammonia, then urea and uric acid. The three nitrogenous waste, we can call them as also nitrogenous waste. These are the nitrogenous waste present in the human beings or in the animals. So they are asking you, which is the least nitrogenous waste present in the animals. So according to the excretory waste, so ammonia is more toxic, next toxic is urea, and the least toxic is uric acid. For dissolving ammonia, it needs lots of amount of water. To dissolve urea, less than ammonia, less than uric acid. So the least toxic will be uric acid. Least toxic is uric acid. Least toxic and most toxic. It is most toxic. Okay. right? So here the answer will be uric acid, the least toxic from among the following anta kelide. The following substances are the excretory products in animals. Choose the least toxic from among them anta ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. Urea, uric acid, ammonia and carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is not called as a nitrogenous waste, so you have to compare with ammonia, urea and uric acid. So the answer is uric acid. Next one. The next question is, filtration of blood takes place at. So if you know the formation of urine, during the formation of urine, we say that the first step is ultrafiltration or glomerulus filtration. Then the second step is called reabsorption and the third step is called secretion. So here, so in which part of the nephron the filtration will takes place anta ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. So PCT and DCT, proximal convoluted tubule, it is the part where it starts with the reabsorption. DCT, even the DCT, distal convoluted tubule, here also most of the electrolytes are reabsorbed from the DCT. Collecting duct, it is a place where the nitrogenous waste urine is collected. Malfusion bodies, so this is important. Malfusion bodies are the structures which are called as malfusion bodies in the nephron anta kelbo, which are called as a malfusion bodies. Malfusion bodies include glomerulus, they include glomerulus, then Bowman's capsule, Bowman's capsule, both together, capsule, both together. So glomerulus, blood knots and the Bowman's capsule both together form the malfusion body. So you can also call them as malfusion tubules and now we read in the arthropods. Here the malfusion bodies will include glomerulus, Bowman's capsule. If we can also take afferent arteriole and efferent arteriole also. Okay. Next. So the answer will be malfusion body. So fourth option is correct. Filtration of blood takes like malfusion body. So malfusion body contains glomerulus and Bowman's capsule. Next question. Here the question is, a large quantity of one of the following is removed from a body by the lungs. Read the question properly. A large quantity of one of the following is removed from a body by the lungs. CO2 only, H2O only, CO2 and H2O, then it is ammonia. So we know that during the process of respiration, the large amount of gas, that is the waste that is going out from our body is CO2 only. So CO2 only is the correct answer. So why not water, CO2 and H2O and ammonia? Ammonia is the excretory waste. Then CO2 and H2O. So when CO2 is going out, H2O is not removed. So we say that about, we say that about 18 liters of, about 18 liters of carbon dioxide is removed from the lungs, removed by the lungs during respiration, by the lungs during respiration. This number is important. So the answer is only CO2 is removed by the lungs during respiration. Why this question is included in this topic here means because CO2 is the waste. So we can take it as a waste that is going out of the body through lungs. Okay, nice. Next question. If you go to the next question. So here the next question is, the next question is, a large quantity of, a large quantity of, sorry, that question is over. A large quantity of one of the following, that is over. CO2 is only. Next, they have given the pH of human urine is, the pH of human urine is. So what is the pH of this, they are asking. So we should know that the approximate pH of urine, it is acid, it is slightly acidic. So here the pH numbers are, they have given 6.5, 7, 6, 7.5. So the pH of urine will be 6. The answer is third one. Okay. So exact pH is given in a book. So they are given 6.5. So you can write 5.5 to 6 also if they give the approximate number. The pH of urine is 6. Next question. Which one of the following statements is incorrect? So which one of the following statements is incorrect? They are asking here. Right. So which one of the following statement is incorrect? Birds and land snails are uricotelic animals. Birds and land snails are uricotelic animals. So that statement is correct because the excretory waste in the birds and land snails means mollusca. Snails will belong to the phylum called mollusca. These are having the nitrogenous waste in the form of uric acid. So that will be correct. So second option, mammals and frogs are ureotelic. Mammals and frogs are ureotelic. So this is also correct because we say that the in mammals the excretory waste or the nitrogenous waste in the form of urea, and even in frogs also. So frogs only we have amphibians. If the frogs are in the land, the nitrogenous waste will be in the form of ureotelic or urea. Next, third one, aquatic amphibians and aquatic insects are amniotic. So this everybody knows that aquatic animals, most of them are amniotic only. So that is also correct. Next point, birds and reptiles are ureotelic. Birds and reptiles are ureotelic antare. This option is wrong. The option should be birds and reptiles are uricotelic. So birds and reptiles are uricotelic. Birds and reptiles are uricotelic. Uricotelic. Okay. Birds and reptiles are uricotelic. Next question. Again, related to the same nitrogenous waste. Which of the following pairs is wrong? Uricotelic birds, then ureotelic insects, amniotic tadpole, ureotelic elephant. So which of the options is wrong, they are asking. So insects are, here the option is the second one. Insects are, we can say that these are uricotelic. Insects are uricotelic in nature. They are not ureotelic. Birds are uricotelic. Insects are uricotelic. Tadpole is the larva of frog. It is amniotic. Ureotelic is elephant. Once again, I'll repeat. The question is, which of the following pairs is wrong here? So here, uricotelic birds, that is correct. Then ureotelic insects. So it should not be ureotelic, it should be uricotelic. Next, amniotic tadpole is correct. Ureotelic elephant is correct. So, for the answer for this question is ureotelic insect is wrong. It should be uricotelic. Next question. The next question is, the condition of accumulation of urea in the blood is termed as. So the question is, the condition of accumulation of urea in the blood is termed as. So for this you should know the conditions here. So they are given with the four options. The one option given to you all is, so uremia. Uremia is the one condition where there is uremia means accumulation of urea. Accumulation of urea in the blood sample or in the blood. Accumulation of urea in blood is called uremia. Then again they have given here ketonuria. Ketonuria. So accumulation of ketone bodies. Accumulation of ketone bodies. Ketones. Accumulation of ketones in the blood is called accumulation of ketones in blood is called ketonuria. Then the other three options are, they have given a renal caniculi. Renal caliculi. Renal caliculi, it is a disorder of excretory system. It is a disorder disorder of excretory system where there is accumulation of stones and oxalates in the kidney and head. Accumulation of stones and oxalates in kidney. So the next option they have given is glomerular glomerulonephritis. So glomerulonephritis, it is glomerulonephritis. Here inflammation of glomerulus, inflammation of glomeruli or glomerular. Inflammation of glomeruli is called glomerular nephritis. So when you read the question, you should know the option there. The condition of accumulation of urea in the bloodstream will be uremia. Answer is third one. Uremia is a condition where urea is accumulated in the blood. Renal caliculi, it is a accumulation of stones in the form of oxalates in the kidney. Next, glomerular nephritis, it is a condition where inflammation of glomeruli. So inflammation of the glomeruli will take place. Next, ketonuria, it is a condition where ketones are accumulated in the blood. So for this, the answer will be uremia. Next question. Next question is, which one of the following is known as antidiuretic hormone? So you should know here, which one is called as antidiuretic hormone. Antidiuretic hormone, we know ADH. The full form of ADH is antidiuretic hormone. ADH. Which hormone is called antidiuretic? So they are given then. So exact answer will be vasopressin. Vasopressin is called as antidiuretic hormone. This hormone is going to control the body during urine formation. Vasopressin is the antidiuretic hormone that is present in the excretory organs during filtration of blood. So they have given other options there. The other options are oxytocin. Oxytocin is a hormone that is needed during the birth of the baby. So oxytocin will help in milk secretion in the human body. So you should know the hormones of which are having the function. It is oxytocin, which help in milk secretion. It helps in milk secretion in the females after childbirth. Next one is adrenaline. Adrenaline hormone. Then the next one is calcitonin. Calcitonin, it maintains calcium metabolism. Calcium metabolism is done by the calcitonin. And adrenaline will help in maintaining the concentration, where adrenaline will help in mineralocorticoids, the release of mineralocorticoids and glucocorticoids also. Cortisols antanu ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. So example, some sex hormones are also, steroid hormones are also released from the adrenaline. Okay, so for 150, the answer will be vasopressin. Vasopressin is also called as, another name for vasopressin is pitressin antanu ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. Okay, next question. Is a match the following given. The match the following is, match the terms given in column 1 with their physiological process given in the column 2 and choose the correct answer. Column 1, we have proximal convoluted tubule, then distal convoluted tubule, then Henle's law, then counter current mechanism, and renal corpuscles. To attain this, you should know the correct function of the organs there in the nephron. Proximal convoluted tubule helps in a reabsorption of, 70 to 80% of electrolytes. So when you read the structure of nephron and during urine formation, the PCT will help in reabsorption of 70 to 80% of electrolytes from the excretory waste, that is from the blood, you can say that. So first one will be third. Next, distal convoluted tubule. Distal convoluted tubule will be helping in ionic balance. So there is a balance in the distal convoluted tubule. Next, Henle's law. Henle's law will help in formation of concentrated urine. Henle's law, descending limb and ascending limb will help in the formation of concentrated urine. Next, counter current mechanism. Counter current mechanism will help in maintenance of concentration gradient in the medulla. Next, renal corpuscles. Renal corpuscles will help in filtration of blood. Renal corpuscles are helping in filtration of blood. So the answer will be second one, A3, B4, C1, D5 and E2 is the correct answer for this option. Next, again there is a match the following given. The match the following again is, they have given the some conditions there. They have given glycosuria, renal calculi, glomerular nephritis and gout. So already we know the two things that renal calculi, it is nothing but accumulation of crystallized salts within the kidney. So kidneyಯಲ್ಲಿ stones ಗಳು oxalate form ಅಲ್ಲಿ crystallize ಆಗಿ ಕಿಡ್ನಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಆದರೆ ಅದನ್ನ renal calculi ಅಂತ ಕರೀತೀವಿ. Glycosuria, it is a condition where presence of glucose in the blood, presence of glucose in the urine is called glycosuria. Next, glomerular nephritis, inflammation of glomeruli is called glomerular nephritis. Gout, so gout is a disease, accumulation of uric acid in the joints, particularly uric acid anta bandirodinda, it is a nitrogenous waste that has to be filtered. This is going to accumulate in the joints. That condition or that disease is called gout. So the answer will be glycosuria, presence of glucose. So glycosuria, presence of glucose. Next, renal calculi, it is renal calculi, it is mass of crystals within the kidney. Next, glomerular nephritis, inflammation of, so the answer will be third one, A4, B3, C2 and D1. It is A4, B3, C1, C2 and D1. So the option for this, the correct option will be third one. Next, the next question is, dialyzing unit, artificial kidney contains a fluid which is almost same as a plasma except that it has. So here dialyzing unit, in the dialyzing unit we say that there is a composition same as the kidney when they are filtering the blood. So the same composition are present except urea. There is no urea in the dialyzing unit when there is a filtration there. Dialyzing unit contains a fluid which is almost same as plasma except that it has no urea is answer. So high glucose, high urea, high uric acid is given. So there is no urea in the sample anta ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. So high urea ಮತ್ತು high uric acid ಬರೋದೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. So glucose ಇರಬಹುದು, ಅದು ಬಿಟ್ಟು the answer will be no urea. Urea is not present in the dialyzing unit when the kidneys are filtered there. Next one again. So they have given a diagram here. The given figure is related with the myosin monomer. Identify the parts labeled from A to C and select the correct options. So they are given a diagram of myosin. So here the diagram of myosin, you should know the labelings of the diagram, how the myosin is there. We say myosin, the structural, the skeletal muscles are made up of myosin and actin. Myosin is called as a dark band and actin is called as a light band. So they are asking the labelings there. For labelings, you should know that. So if I take the diagrammatic view of myosin here, myosin. So here it is helical like this. Just for rough understanding, we write like this. It is helically arranged and it has the head like this. The heads are almost in this form. We have this structure like this. So here it is having the active binding site, actin binding site are there. Then we have, so this part. So they have given this as, this is the head of the myosin, head of myosin. From here to here we call it as cross arm, cross arm. Then here we have the two parts here. One is called actin binding site, actin binding site, binding site. Another one is called ATP hydrolysis, ATP binding site, ATP binding site. So here they have asked the option here. So the options are, first one, A is, in the first one A is, so here first option A is egg, B is cross arm, C is GTP binding site at the end. So if I say head is A is egg, then here B is cross arm and this is C. So the answer will be A is egg, B is cross arm and C is ATP binding site. So the exact answer for this will be third one. ATP binding site is the C there. So myosin is having egg, cross arm and ATP binding sites. So the third option is correct for this question. Next one. The functional unit of contractile system is, system in a striated muscle is, in the striated muscle. So which is the contractile system? So they are given with the option there. The functional unit of contractile system in the striated muscle is, so they have given sarcomere, Z band, then cross bridge and myofibrils. So sarcomere is called as the functional unit of the striated muscle. During the, in the contractile system, sarcomere is called as the functional unit there. So they have given other options are, answer will be sarcomere for this. Second option is Z band and next is cross bridges. Cross bridges is a condition where myosin and actin will come in contact. So during when the myosin head fixes into the actin site, so then it will form the cross bridge. Myofibrils are the actin and myosin. Actin and myosin, light and dark bands are called as myofibrils. Then what about the Z band? So Z band is nothing but the two actin structures, the two actin structures that are formed in the sarcomere, in the sarcomere of the contractile system. It forms the Z band, or the two lines of actin, one actin to one side and another actin to other side. It forms the sarcomere. That bands are called as Z band. So 151, the answer will be sarcomere. The functional unit of contractile system in the striated muscle is sarcomere. Next one. Actin binding sites are located on. Actin binding sites are located on. So they have asked the troponin is there, tropomyosin is there, meromycin is there. Both 2 and 3 they have given. The actin binding sites are present where, or located where? So direct answer will be here meromycin. So here troponin, where are the troponin present? They are present on the actin filament. So tropomyosin, if I take the diagrammatic view of, if you take the diagrammatic view of actin, So if I take the diagrammatic view of actin here, so the actin, it is an helically formed structure, right? This helical structure is having the globular proteins there continuous like this. So again it is having the formation here. So these helically bound globular F actins are running helically there. On these helical structures, we have clusters of cells. The clusters, they are present here and there on the actin filament are called troponin. So these are called troponin. So these are troponin, and these are called tropomyosin. Tropomyosin. Myosin. But the question is on which there is a binding of actin site and the kelder. The question is actin binding sites are located on which? On the meromycin. So meromycin, on the myosin, there are some locations where the actin is going to bind. That part is called meromycin. So light meromycin and heavy meromycin are present in the myosin unit where the actin is going to bind. Troponin ಮತ್ತು tropomyosin, they are the part of actin filament or actin. But meromycin, it is a part of myosin. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಈಸಿಯಾಗಿ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಬೇಕು. Actin will bind with the myosin at particularly meromycin region. Next question. Again, there is a match the following. The match the following given here. So the one column they have given structural and functional unit of myofibril. So this is a direct question. We have already know that the functional unit of the striated muscle or the myofibril is sarcomere. We already know this. Next, protein of thin filament now. Protein of thin filament is called as actin. Protein of thin filament. Protein of thin filament. Thin filament is protein of thin filament is actin. Actins are called, so these are also called I bands, or these are also called as isotropic bands. Isotropic bands, which are light bands also. We call them as light bands. Next, protein of thick filament. Protein of thick filament will be, protein of thick filament is your myosin. Myosin is called as a thick filament. Myosin or dark bands. Or dark bands. Okay. So these are called as anisotropic bands. Anisotropic bands. Okay. So next, they have given another one there. The central part of thick filament not overlapped by the thin filament will be H zone. So when we take the structure of a sarcomere, then I'll tell you what is H band, H zone. So the answer will be structural and functional unit of myofibril. Myofibril is sarcomere. A is 3. Next, protein of thin filament is 4, actin. Protein of thick filament is myosin, 2. Then the central part of the thick filament not overlapped by the thin filament will be H zone. So the answer is fourth one, A3, B4. So answer for this will be A3, B4, C2, D1. Okay, the match the following that is given here. Structural and functional unit of myofibril is sarcomere, A3. Protein of thin filament is 4, B4, actin. Protein of thick filament is myosin, C2. The central part of thick filament not overlapped by the thin filament is H2. So the answer will be fourth one. Okay, next one. Next question is, right, again we have the diagram of, there is a diagram of which one? The diagram of, we have the diagram of actin filament there. So the actin filament is given So here, A is troponin. So here A is troponin, then B is tropomycin, A is troponin, B is tropomycin, and C. So these are called F-actin. So we say these are F-actins now. Okay, C. So the option will be fourth option is correct. A troponin, B tropomycin, C F-actin. So the answer for this question will be, so the answer for this question is fourth one. Troponin, tropomycin and F-actin is correct. So the fourth option is correct. Next question. Myoglobin is present in. So myoglobin is present. So it is a pigment. So myoglobin is a pigment which is useful in storage of oxygen anta otti. So myoglobin, the globin, the protein which is going to store oxygen is present in. So they are asking here all muscle fibers, then white muscle fibers, then red muscle fibers, and none of this. So white muscle fibers and red muscle fibers are the myoglobin fibers on. So other muscle fibers where they have the storage of myoglobin. So myoglobin is stored in all the muscle fibers. So there should be a oxygen storage in the body where the muscle fibers are going to store the myoglobins there. The myoglobins, so as we have hemoglobin which is helping in, so hemoglobin that is present in the blood will help in transport of oxygen ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಅದೇ ತರ myoglobins are present in the muscles. So all the muscle fibers will contain the myoglobin. So the answer is first one. Next one. So in the resting muscle fiber, so in the resting muscle fiber, tropomyosin partially covers. So during the resting position, when there is no contraction, the tropomyosin partially covers. What is going to cover? So there is no unmasking. During contraction only, the myosin head will fix with the actin site and there is a movement there, sliding movement and held. So during resting muscle fiber, tropomyosin of actin. So if you see the diagram here, tropomyosin of actin will partially cover. It partially covers. So the option there given are calcium binding sites on the troponin. So it don't partially cover the calcium binding sites on the troponin. Actin binding sites on the myosin. Actin binding sites on the, it will start with the contraction. Myosin binding sites on actin. So it will partially cover the myosin binding sites on actin. Calcium binding sites on actin. So if calcium binding sites on actin are partially covered, there is no contraction at all. So the answer will be myosin binding site. Myosin binding sites on actin are partially covered by tropomyosin during resting muscle fiber. Muscle rest ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಟ್ರೋಪೋಮೈಸಿನ್ಗಳು ಪಾರ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಏನು ಕವರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತವೆ, ಮಯೋಸಿನ್ ಬೈಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಸೈಟ್ಸ್ ನ ಆನ್ ಆಕ್ಟಿನ್ ನಲ್ಲಿರೋದನ್ನ ಕವರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತವೆ. ಆನ್ ಆಕ್ಟಿನ್ ಮಯೋಸಿನ್ ಬೈಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಸೈಟ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಪಾರ್ಷಿಯಲಿ ಕವರ್ಡ್. Next, again, for this I'll tell you the structure of an sarcomere. So the question is during muscular contraction, which of the following events will occur? So during resting stage ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಯ್ತು ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಾಯ್ತು. During muscular contraction, which of the following events will occur? So yeah, so if I take the structure, the functional unit of contractile fibers, here sarcomere unit, we said that it is made up of, so here we have thin filaments. Thin filaments are arranged here. The thin filaments arranged in the contractile or in the striated muscle or in the sarcomere. So this is actin. In between this actin, we have thick filaments. The thick filaments that have written in the thick filaments that are running in between the actin filaments. They are running in between the actin filaments. Okay, right. Then again to this side, again we have here actin. Next again actin. Then again we have actin. It will continue like this. Arrangement of the sarcomere unit. So these first we call them as actin. Actin or I band. Okay. Now these are called myosin, myosin or A band. We call them as during contraction. What will happen to the sarcomere? They are asking. And again, this is actin. So here there is a line here and there is a line between the two actin filaments. There is a line running. This is called Z line. This is Z line. Okay. Now we see there. So here the myosin. So the myosin, they are, we see as if they are overlapping here. Actin is overlapping on myosin on the head. So this from here till here, this is called H zone. H zone means where only the myosin is present. Only the myosin is present. That zone is called H zone. And we see that the myosin are present one above the other by a line called, the line is called M line or M line at the head. Okay. So here M, Z and H zone are very important for understanding. ಎರಡು actin filament ಇಂದ ಎರಡು actin filament ಗಳು formation ಆದಾಗ, so here actin filament there is a line, or we say that from one Z line to other Z line it forms a sarcomere unit. Okay, then only where myosin is present it is called H zone. So the myosins are going to be seen like they are present one above the other. That will be M line, right? So during contraction what will happen? So during contraction of muscles, what is the condition seen? During muscle contraction, which of the following events occur? So events, first one, they say that during the muscle contraction, so there is during muscle contraction what will happen? Whether the H zone disappears, which one of the following events occur? So here they say H zone will disappear because the H zone that is formed here during muscle contraction, what happens? The actin will overlap with the myosin. When there is an overlap between the actin and myosin, then the H zone will disappear. Then second option, they say that A band widens. A band will never stretch, or there is no widening of A band. It will remain as it is. So that will be wrong. I band reduces in width. So A band is nothing but myosin band will widen ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ. There is no widening of myosin. But so next option ಅಲ್ಲಿ I band reduces in width, because as soon the myosin binds with the actin, then the active sites are created. The head of the myosin goes on sliding on this. So there is the band reduces in width. I band will reduce in width. That is correct. Next, fourth option, width of the A band is unaffected. Again same option. Width of the A band is unaffected. There is no effect to the A band. That is also. Next, M line and Z line come closer. M line and Z line will come closer. Yes, M line and Z line will come closer. Actin will come close with myosin. So myosins are held together by a line called M line. Now the myosin, when it comes and slides on the actin, the both will come together, closer together. So the answer will be 1 is correct, then 3 is correct. A band widens is wrong, B option. Then 3, I band reduces in width is correct. Next, fourth one, width of the A band is unaffected. M line and Z line comes closer. So the first option is correct. during muscle contraction, there is the H zone disappears. That is correct. Then I band reduce in width is correct. Fourth option, width of the A band is unaffected. Fifth option is M line and Z line comes closer. That is also correct. So the first option 1, 3, 4 and 5 are correct. Next one. Again, there is a as the following. Fast muscle fiber, slow muscle fiber, actin filament, sarcomere. Already we know the answer for sarcomere. Sarcomere is called as a functional unit of contractile or contractile unit of muscles. Okay, that is correct. So actin filament is I band. So we know the answer. Two answers we know there. So D will be 3. D is 3. Next C is C is 4. D is 3. C is 4. Next we have to search for fast muscle fiber and slow muscle fiber. Fast muscle fiber will be whether it is lactic acid or myoglobin. So fast muscle fiber will be lactic acid that is produced during anaerobic respiration, and slow muscle fiber will be, it is fast muscle fiber is lactic acid, then slow muscle fiber will be myoglobin. So the answer will be third option. So third option is correct. Next. So the answer is third one. The answer is third one. A2 lactic acid, B1, C4 and D3. So the answer is third one. Next one. Which of the following is not a disorder of bone? So we are related with locomotion and movement bandaga. We should know the disorders of bone. Which one of the following is not a disorder anta kelidare. So arthritis, osteoporosis, rickets, arteriosclerosis. Arthritis, it is a disorder. Arthritis, it is a disorder of, right? Arthritis is nothing but it is an inflammation of joints on the healthy. Arthritis is an inflammation of joints. Osteoporosis, the bones are become fragile on the healthy, pores in the porous form of bones of the healthy. Next, rickets, it is a deficiency of vitamin D and calcium on the healthy. Due to deficiency of vitamin D and calcium, there is a disorder or a disease called rickets. Arteriosclerosis, it is related to heart. So arteriosclerosis is nothing but hardening of arteries will take place. So fourth option is wrong. First three are related to bone disorder and the last one is wrong. So answer will be fourth one. Next question. Which one of the following statement is incorrect now? Which one of the following is incorrect? So heart muscles are striated and involuntary. That is correct. So heart muscles are striated and involuntary. Striations, dark and light bands are present. Heart muscles are not under the control of our will. So the first option will be correct. The muscles of hands and legs are striated and voluntary. So they are not striated, they are, so the muscles of the skeletal muscles are, we say that the skeletal muscles are voluntary. Muscles of hands and legs are striated and healthy. So that is correct. So it is also correct. Next, striations are there in the skeletal muscle. Next, the muscles located in the inner walls of the alimentary canal are striated and involuntary. So inner wall of the alimentary canal are smooth muscles. Smooth muscles are not having striations. So involuntary is correct, but striated is wrong. So the third option will be wrong here. Next, muscles located in the reproductive tracts are unstriated and involuntary. So there are no striations and it is involuntary. That is correct. So the answer will be third one. So the muscles located in the inner walls of alimentary canal are striated and involuntary. So inner walls of the alimentary canal are having smooth muscles. The smooth muscles are not having striations, but they are involuntary in nature. Next question. Muscles with characteristic striations and involuntary are muscles with characteristic striations and involuntary are. We know the best example for this is cardiac muscle. Cardiac muscle is having striations and it is involuntary. So we can directly go to the answer there. Muscles in the wall of the alimentary canal are smooth muscles and involuntary, but they are not having striations. Muscles of the heart. Muscles of the heart are having striations and they are involuntary in nature. So the answer will be second one. So and then what about the muscles assisting locomotion? Here we have skeletal muscles and these are voluntary in nature. Muscles of the eyelids are also the voluntary in nature, but they are skeletal muscles there. So the answer is second one, muscles of the heart. Next one. Next question. The junction between the axon of one neuron and dendrite of the next is called as. This one you already know that. So the junction between axon of one neuron and dendrite of other neuron. So if we read this one, we say axon of one neuron, axon of one neuron and dendrite of other neuron. It is what? So that junction is called. So the junction that is present between the axon of one neuron and dendrite of other neuron is called synapse. We say it is synapse. The technical word for the junction between the end of one axon and dendrite is a synapse. Constant bridge junction point joint. So joints are between the bones. Joints will be between the bones. Constant bridge is not totally not related to this junction point where two cells or two tissues will meet. So the answer will be synapse is correct. Okay. The junction between the axon of one neuron and dendrite of the next is called synapse. Next question. Skeletal muscles are controlled by. So the questions that are related to neural control and coordination. The skeletal muscles are controlled by. So the skeletal muscles are controlled by which neurons there are? Sympathetic nerves, parasympathetic nerves, somatic nerves, and autonomic nerves. So here, so in the central nervous system is again divided into peripheral nervous system and autonomic nervous system. In the autonomic nervous system, again we have somatic and peripheral nerves. Somatic and we have parasympathetic and sympathetic nerves. So somatic nerves are the controlled by the skeletal muscles. Somatic nerves of the brain are going to control the skeletal muscles. Okay. So 167, the answer will be somatic nerves. Skeletal muscles are controlled by somatic nerves of the human brain. Next question. So there is a flow chart given here. The flow chart given here shows the functional organization of human neural system. Identify A to E. Select the correct option. Human nervous system or human neural system is again, so it is divided into the central nervous system is divided into peripheral nervous system and autonomic nervous system. Again, peripheral nervous system is divided into brain and spinal cord. Here autonomic nervous system is again divided into sympathetic neural system and parasympathetic neural system. Okay, so you should know that the answer will be third one. Central nervous system, peripheral nervous system, autonomic nervous system, and again sympathetic neural system, parasympathetic neural system. Okay, so you should see the chart and understand. First you'll write central nervous system is divided into peripheral nervous system and autonomic nervous system. Again peripheral nervous system is divided into brain and spinal cord. Then autonomic nervous system is divided into, again we have there ANS is divided into sympathetic neural system and parasympathetic neural system. So the answer will be third one. Next. Myelin sheath is formed by. So when we read the structure of a neuron, we say that myelin shells or myelinated sheath are going to protect the squamous cells of the head, scaven cells of the head. So myelin sheath is formed by. So they are formed by the squamous cells. Myelin sheath are formed by the squamous cells. ಸೊ ರೆನಿವರ್ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ, ನೋಡ್ ಆಫ್ ರೆನಿವರ್, muscle cells, axon. So the squam cells are responsible for the formation of myelin sheath. Myelin sheath, it is made up of a lipid structure there. Myelinated neurons. Myelin sheath is going to cover the squam cells in the neuron structure. Okay. Next question. Next question is, which of the following nerves have non-myelinated nerve fibers? So which of the following nerves have non-myelinated nerve fibers? Optic nerves, spinal nerves, cranial nerves, autonomic nerves. So the answer will be, so which of the following nerves have non-myelinated neurons? So some neurons are there in the human body where they are not protected by, if this is a, so here if I take the structure of a neuron, this neuron structure is having an axon. This axon is having, the axon is made up of myelinated sheath lengths. Myelinated sheath. The myelinated sheath will have the node of Renever there, and with the squam cells. The squam cells are going to present. But your question is, which of the nerves will not have non-myelinated neurons? Myelin sheath is totally absent. Only the squam cells are going to present. Okay, this type of nerves are present where, miss, it is directly in the autonomic nerves. So autonomic nerves are present which are not under the control there. Autonomic ಗಾಗಿ work ಆಗ್ತದೆ. Optic nerves means the nerves in the eye, spinal nerves, the nerves in the spinal cord, cranial nerves, the nerves in the brain. Autonomic nerves are the nerves where they don't have non-myelinated nerve fibers. So myelin sheath is totally absent there. Only the scan cells with the axon is present. Okay. So the answer will be autonomic nerves. Which of the following nerves have non-myelinated nerve fibers? It is autonomic nerves. Students, due to some technical issues, some of the questions have not been discussed properly. So due to that, from 171 question. Okay. The question is, the given diagram shows axon terminal and synapse. So here, right. So the question is, the given diagram shows axon terminal and synapse. Here A, B, C and D are respectively represent. So the diagram of, they have given a diagram here. The diagram is, it is an end of an axon and end of a dendrite where synapse is formed ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ you have to identify the labelings of the diagram. So when you go to the diagram of this, we say that here an end of axon, there is an end of an axon, then this axon will have the end of a dendrite, right? So when we read this, so we say that there are some spaces where neurotransmitters are present, right? This axon with the this structure, axon end plus end of the dendrite is given here. Here we have the neurotransmitters. Inside here we have the neurotransmitters. Then we have synaptic vesicles. Here we have synaptic vesicles. So these are synaptic vesicles. Then here below this we have the synaptic cleft. We say it as synaptic cleft. Right? So when you go to this diagram here, this labeling, when you go for the labeling here, it is synaptic vesicles. Synaptic vesicles. So these are synaptic vesicles. Then this one, it is called synaptic cleft. Synaptic cleft. Then, so this is an axon terminal. So this one is axon terminal. It is an axon terminal, right? Here on the dendrite region, on the dendrite we have the receptors. So the receptors are present at the dendrite end of one dendrite. So these are receptors. Okay. So the four labelings are asked to you. What is the A is what, B is what, and C is what, and D is what. So this is axon terminal is indicated by alphabet A. Then here synaptic vesicles are indicated by alphabet B. Next, so this part synaptic cleft is indicated by C, and D. The receptors that are present on the dendrite are indicated as D. So this is a diagram where we have the labeling here. So the answer for this will be, see that. So A is axon terminal. We have to search where is A. A is axon terminal. B is synaptic vesicles. C is synaptic cleft, and D is receptors, and E is neurotransmitters. The neurotransmitters are here. Neurotransmitters. Okay. So you should know the diagrams to learn the answer here. Neurotransmitters. Okay. Now, so here once again I'll repeat. So they have given a diagram of axon and dendrite end, or a diagram of a synapse. So here you should know the labelings here. So the answer will be 2. Axon terminal, synaptic vesicles, synaptic cleft, receptors, and neurotransmitters. Okay. So it is an easy question when you learn with the diagram. Next question. Next question is the, the electrical potential difference. The electrical potential difference between outside and inside of the nerve axon before excitation is known as. So you know the concept already here. Before excitation, before depolarization, if we take, what will be the condition of the axon here? So the electrical potential difference, if I take an axon membrane, so if I take the electrical impulse on a neuron or an axon here, we have charges. So on the outer surface we'll be having the positive charges. In the inner surface of the axon we have the negative charges. So both side, outer layer and the inner layer, we have the charges. So here the positivity of the outer surface is due to the presence of, it is due to the presence of sodium and potassium ions, will say. So why the charges are positive on the outer surface means due to the presence of sodium and potassium inside. And why it is negative inside? Because it has the negatively charged proteins. Negatively charged proteins are present inside the membrane. So due to this, it is the arrangement of ions on the outer surface and the inner surface. So they are asking you the electrical potential difference between outside and inside of the nerve axon before excitation, before the electrical charges are going to move inside, or due to the, when there is conduction of impulses, what will happen? What is that condition called as? The condition is called as resting potential. It is called resting potential. Okay, it is resting potential before the electrical impulses are going to conduct. So as soon the electrical impulses will conduct, that condition will be action potential. It is action potential. It is action potential. Right? Next, what is spike potential? They have given another word for you on that. What is spike potential? So spike potential is nothing but the potential or the electrical impulses that are conducted in striated muscles, particularly in the striated muscles. Striated muscles have spike potential. They have spike potential. Here, the conduction of impulses is very fast. That type of potential is called spike potential. A reaction potential, due to the movement of charges, there is a reaction in the axon nerve of the axon. Okay. So once again, I'll repeat. The question is the electrical potential difference between outside and inside of the nerve axon before excitation is known as resting potential. Okay. We say it is polarized. Then we say depolarized. Then we say repolarize. So when it is polarized, the charges are going to move inside. So influx of sodium ions and potassium ions will take place to maintain the concentration gradient. Right? So the answer for 171 will be resting potential. Okay. Next question. Corpus callosum connects. Corpus callosum connects two. So you should know that where is corpus callosum present? Corpus callosum is present in the structure of brain. We have a tough bodied structure. In the structure of brain, we have corpus callosum. Corpus callosum. It is a tough body. It is a tough body structure. Tough bodied structure. It is highly rich in. Corpus callosum is a tough body and it is highly rich in. So they say that about 200 million of neurons. About 200 million of neurons or nerve fibers are present here. It is a tough bodied, I'm saying. It contains so many nerve fibers or neurons, corpus callosum, that connects. It helps in connection of many nerve fibers, and it has gray matter and white matter also. We say gray matter and white matter is also present, and white matter is present. So, what is the function of corpus callosum? They are asking. What is the function of corpus callosum? What it will connect? So, it is present in the midbrain, particularly above the midbrain and in the forebrain ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. So in between the midbrain and forebrain there is a connecting substance which will connect the cerebrum. So the cerebral hemispheres, the partitions of the brain we call cerebral hemispheres, are connected by the corpus callosum. So you can say that corpus callosum connects. Once again I'll repeat. Corpus callosum connects two cerebral hemispheres. Okay. Next, the option they have given here is ventricles of brain. So even we should know that what are ventricles of brain. So ventricles of brain are present. Ventricles of brain are also present. So here, so when you go for the ventricles of brain, when you go for ventricles of brain, ventricles of brain are present in a bone socket called foramen. Foramen. Here there are four types of ventricle. One is called right ventricle, one is called left ventricle, then third ventricle and fourth ventricle. Third and fourth ventricles. So how many ventricles are there in the brain? And we can say there are four ventricles in the brain, and they are connected by a bone called foramen bone ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. Foramen bone ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. So ventricles of the brain will help in connection. So they are going to connect. So they act as a network. So they'll act as a network ಅಂತಾನು ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. They are the networks which are going to help in communication. They help in communication. Okay. So ventricles of the brain, they act as a networks between the different organs of the brain, and they help in communicating the impulses from one organ to other organ of the brain. Next, cerebral hemisphere, cerebellar hemisphere, they are present in the cerebral hemisphere, are present in the hindbrain, and optic thalamus. So in the forebrain, the hypothalamus and the thalamus, which are going to the nerve fibers that are connected to the eye parts. So those are called optic thalamus. So once again, corpus callosum connects to cerebral hemisphere. It is not cerebellar hemisphere, it is cerebral hemisphere. The first one is correct. Next question. The question is, so the respiratory and cardiac centers, are located in. So when we read the parts of the brain, with the parts of the brain, we have to study with the functions of the brain. So here they have given the options are cerebrum, diencephalon, crura cerebri, and medulla oblongata. So as we read the function of different parts of the brain, the main, so cerebrum is present in the forebrain, diencephalon, crura cerebrum, it is present in the midbrain, medulla oblongata in the hindbrain, the medulla oblongata. So medulla oblongata is a center, medulla oblongata is a medulla oblongata that is present in the hindbrain. Medulla oblongata has, which is present in the hind or hindbrain. This one, it is the function of medulla oblongata is, we say that it contains cardiac centers. It can control the mechanism of heartbeat, cardiac centers. Then even the respiratory flow. So even you say respiration is also controlled by the medulla oblongata. Respiratory centers are also there in medulla oblongata. With that, we say some of the factors like vomiting center, the feeling of nausea is also controlled by medulla oblongata. So medulla oblongata of the brain controls the three types of functions. Mainly these three types. Even some are there, but these are the main functions that are controlled by medulla oblongata. So the question is, the respiratory and cardiac centers are located in medulla oblongata. So in the cerebrum, we say that, so body temperature is regulated. It is a thermoregulation center. Then in the diencephalon, we say that sensory organs are present. So cerebrum is a organ of the brain where it controls the body temperature. Then diencephalon is the area of the brain where sensory organs are present. Then crura cerebri, it is an organ of the midbrain. Then medulla oblongata, it is the organ where the functions of cardiac centers and respiratory centers with the vomiting centers are present. Okay, the answer is fourth one. Next question. Next question. The correct sequence. The question is the correct sequence of meninges from inner to outside. From inner to outside, they are asking. So we say that meninges are called as the covering of the brain. The tough covering of the brain are called meninges. So here meninges are the layers of the brain. Layers of the outer covering of the brain. Outer covering of the brain. Outer covering of brain. So this outer covering of the brain, meninges, will help to protect the brain from damages. So what are the coverings of the brain? The three coverings of the brain from inner side, from inner to outer. The first one will be pyometer, the inner pyometer, the middle arachnoid, middle arachnoid, okay, middle arachnoid, and outer durameter, okay. Once again I'll repeat. So read the question properly. When you answer this question, write the correct sequence of meninges. What are meninges? The layers of the brain, okay, or outer coverings of the brain. The brains are protected by coverings called meninges. From inside, if it is inner pyometer, middle arachnoid, and outer durameter. Okay, the sequence which they have given here. Okay, now the correct sequence of meninges from inner to outside are, so the third option will be correct. So inner pyometer, middle arachnoid, and third is durameter. So the third option is correct for this question. Next question. Next question is, which part of the human brain controls the urge for eating and drinking? Again, which part of the brain controls, which part of the brain controls urge for eating and drinking? So here, urge for eating and drinking. So feeling of or hungerness, ತಿನ್ಬೇಕಂತ ಫೀಲ್ ಆಗೋದು, ಅರ್ಜ್ ಫಾರ್ ಈಟಿಂಗ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಡ್ರಿಂಕಿಂಗ್, ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ನೀರು ಕುಡಿಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದು. ಸೊ ಇಫ್ ಯು ಫೀಲ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಡ್ರಿಂಕಿಂಗ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಈಟಿಂಗ್, ವಿಚ್ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಬ್ರೈನ್ ದೇ ಆರ್ ಆಸ್ಕಿಂಗ್? ಅರ್ಜ್ ಫಾರ್ ಈಟಿಂಗ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಡ್ರಿಂಕಿಂಗ್, urge for eating and drinking are controlled by, these properties or these functions are controlled by which part of the brain ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರು. So it is 100% the forebrain. Forebrain is the organ where the functions are controlled. So particular ಆಗಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ಬಂದ್ರೆ it will be your cerebrum. Cerebrum with the hypothalamus and thalamus. But they are asking here which brain, whether it is forebrain, midbrain, or hindbrain, or spinal cord. So forebrain is the organ of the brain where urge for eating and drinking are controlled. So what about the midbrain? Midbrain controls the some of the functions, like we say that some of the sensory organs are present there. The sensory organs are connected, and urge for some emotions are also controlled. Hindbrain, so medulla oblongata, pons, all are present there. Hindbrain, we already said that cardiac center, respiratory center, and even the vomiting centers are present in the hindbrain. Spinal cord. Spinal cord will connect the nerve fibers towards the other parts of the body in the human brain. The human brain, which has spinal cord, the nerve fibers are going to connect to the down parts of the body. Okay, forebrain is the brain that controls the urge for eating and drinking. Okay, next question. Next question is, chemicals which are released at synaptic junctions are called. So here I didn't erase this diagram because here you can answer this question also. We say that, so in the axon terminal and the end of an axon terminal and end of a dendrite. So here I said neurotransmitters are there. The neurotransmitters that are helpful are called, we say them as acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter which is helping in conduction of impulses of the health. So hangidre, so chemicals which are released at the synaptic junction. So this is the synapse. At this junction we have the release of neurotransmitters. So the neurotransmitters which help in conduction of impulses are acetylcholine in the system. So again the options are, they have given hormones. Hormones are only present in the blood and they are going to do specific functions in the body. Next, cerebrospinal fluid. Cerebrospinal fluid, there CSF ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. So they have given CSF, cerebrospinal fluid. Cerebrospinal fluid. This fluid is present in the brain. The cerebrospinal fluid which help in connection of the ventricles. So cerebrospinal fluid of the brain which helps in connection of ventricles. The 4 ventricles are connected by the cerebrospinal fluid. Due to the cerebrospinal fluid, there is no friction between the different parts of the brain antanu ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. Next, lymph. It is a colorless liquid that is present in the connective tissue, blood. Lymph is having the function of to produce the antibodies. Lymphatic system ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. So here lymph will act as that. So the answer will be chemicals are released at the synaptic junction are called as neurotransmitters, which help in conduction of impulses in the brain. Next question. Again, potential difference across the resting membrane is negatively charged. This is due to the differential distribution of the following ions. Potential difference across the resting membrane is negatively charged. This is due to the differential distribution of following ions. I have written, so I have already told you this one. So here, when you take a nerve axon, how the charges are going to be placed. If I take a axon membrane, so outer membrane it is made up of positively charged potassium and sodium ion. So sodium positive, potassium positive. So inner membrane it is made up of negatively charged proteins and the okay. So inner membrane is having negatively charged proteins with the ions. But sodium and potassium ions in the inner membrane are very less, but in the outer membrane they are more. So to maintain the concentration gradient, there is the inward movement of the ions. The ions may enter inside and go outside. So when they have to maintain the concentration gradient. So the question is, the potential difference across the resting membrane is negatively charged. This is due to the differential distribution of the following ions. Due to sodium and potassium ions, there is a potential difference in the axon membrane. So there are CO3 plus Cl ions. These are not at all present in the axon membrane. Calcium and magnesium, they have given calcium and chloride ions. Only sodium and potassium ions will help in conduction of impulses on the axon membrane. Okay, the answer is first one. Next question. Next question is, the resting membrane potential is maintained by again. So again the same question is repeated now. The resting membrane potential is maintained by. So this, the resting membrane potential. This is a diagram of a resting membrane potential. This is maintained by how the impulses are going to be conducted. With which help it is going to conduct the impulse. How they are going to maintain the concentration gradient. So polarize, depolarize and repolarize when there is a contraction and relaxation of muscles. So when there is a contraction and relaxation of muscles, the impulses are going to come in the form of neurotransmitters. So here we can say that this, the resting membrane potential is maintained by, it is maintained by neurotransmitters. So I already told you neurotransmitters are in the form of acetylcholine, chemical called acetylcholine. So other options are also given there. Hormones ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. So hormones are there for specific function of the body. Next, ion pumps are sodium and potassium. None of this. So neurotransmitters are needed for maintaining the potential that maintained by neurotransmitters. Next question. An area in the brain which is associated with strong emotions. Again this question is almost same which you read in the previous one. An area in the brain which is associated with strong emotions they are asking. So the strong emotions like feeling sad or feeling happy, all these are called as emotion oriented strong emotions. To control the strong emotions, which organ of the brain is responsible? So the options given there are, they have given cerebral cortex, cerebellum, limbic system, medulla. So already we know the function of medulla. Medulla is helping in maintaining the cardiac activity and respiratory system, respiration control, and some of the vomiting centers are also located in the medulla. Cerebral cortex, it is a cortex of the brain where the locomotory functions are completely controlled, or motor functions are controlled by the cerebral cortex. And cerebellum, it is a part of the forebrain where the temperature, thermoregulation is maintained. So now the limbic system. The limbic system is also present in the forebrain, particularly the limbic system called, here we have hypothalamus of the brain. Hypothalamus of the brain has amygdala and hippocampus. Amygdala and hippocampus will help in controlling, or it is associated with strong emotions of the human beings. Okay, once again I'll repeat here, an area in the brain which is associated with strong emotion is cerebral cortex ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾನೆ, cerebellum ಅಂತಾನೆ, limbic system ಅಂತಾನೆ, medulla ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. So medulla ಅಂದ್ರೆ it is a center for cardiac activity and respiratory activity, and it is also going to control the function of vomiting sensation. Cerebral cortex in some of the locomotory functions or motor functions are controlled by cerebral cortex and even the cerebellum. With that cerebellum, it also controls the thermoregulation. Body temperature is maintained by cerebellum. So the only option which you have to know is limbic system. Limbic system is also present in the forebrain. In the forebrain, the limbic system, it is the part of the hypothalamus of the LD. Hypothalamus is having the two organs called hippocampus and amygdala. Amygdala and hippocampus of the forebrain of the hypothalamus will have the association with strong emotions of the human beings. Okay, so this completes the questions which are not being discussed. So the questions have been discussed due to some technical issues. Some of them had not clear voice, so I have repeated these questions. Thank you, students.